Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, man. Fantastic. All right, let me see. I should have our live here up in just a moment. I'll go grab this. Yeah, I know. Is it cold up there, or is it
Oh yeah, so well, you're on the West Coast. You know what cold is. Cold is like almost in your language, 32 degrees would be cold,
well,
right?
we're talking you guys do Celsius up there. So what's
Oh,
it Celsius? What are you
uh,
at?
about 5 degrees out.
5? Yeah. Celsius always sounds so much scarier to people. They're like, "Oh, it's a
Yeah,
0? It's at
it's like
0?"
five degrees,
It's
about
just freezing. It's
4 degrees,
okay. Yeah,
40.
it just makes sense when you have the phase change that you would put that at 0. Makes sense to me.
Well,
Gotta
where things freeze, why call it 32 when things freeze at 0?
Wouldn't it make sense that way? Wouldn't it
Well,
make sense?
so
Oh,
why?
it kills me. Yeah. Even the English abandoned their own system, and yet here we are.
It had to happen.
Of course. There we go. Here we are. Did you by any chance get the link, by the way, to do the collaborative? Hey everybody, we're just getting started here. Just a moment. Looks like it. So, all right. Good morning, everyone. I am happy to be back. Ooh, happy to be back with you guys for another dialogue. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen all of you, and it's great to be back here with my good friend John.
Hey, Shane.
And how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. It's like you're in the center of a storm of just shit flying every single day.
It feels that way. It feels that way, especially in my line of work. I tell you,
Oh,
especially in a way.
very
So it's important. It's important that we talk about the things that make us happy in times like this, right? It's always really important that when you're so immersed in all of these toxic, horrible things that is reality. Jokingly I was out with my friends the other day, and I was like, oh my God, it's like we're just talking about what's going on. He's like, it's just a horrible time to be alive. And
right.
it does feel that way very often. So I said, tell me one thing that's made you very happy recently. Uh and for me, like, I love to take my dogs for a walk every morning. I enjoy painting. I enjoy doing a lot of creative things, right? I think you and me both agree that kind of the antidote to these kind of darker feelings is the act of creation, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But
So
that walking the dogs, I mean, that happens every day, right? So that's not special to today. But I'll tell you what my special thing is today that made me very happy, very
I'm
happy.
okay.
And it's got nothing to do with the topic today, which is supposed to be music. But
That's
you know,
okay.
when Donald Trump says that bridge is mine, you have to pay me for that bridge, all the work that we put into it. Mr. Trump, you didn't put any work into it yourselves. I mean, we paid for it. Canada paid for it. We used our steel. We used your steel. We used our labor. We used your labor. That's what cooperation looks like. And we'll collect the tolls until the bridge is paid off, and then we'll go 50-50. What do you think? Sounds like a normal deal, right? That's a normal deal.
That's a better deal than he deserves. That's a
Trump's
better deal than any of them deserve.
Trump's art of the deal is you give me shit and I give you nothing.
Yeah, you bankroll all of my evil conspiracies in the United States with your dirty Gulf money, and then I'm going to come in and destabilize your entire region because I feel like it.
Right.
That's the Trump method. It's absolutely it's lunacy, and I think we'll talk about music, but I am curious too, because one of the things I haven't really seen a lot of what's going on in Canada recently. And I've heard some things about is it Alberta that's experiencing you guys are facing some internal stuff as well recently. There's obviously a big push in the United States, very clearly by the pedophile president and the pedophile administration, to undermine foreign governments.
Yeah.
We've seen this in Latin America.
Yeah.
So what, it seems just from kind of my observation, it does, are they trying, not necessarily successful, but does it look like they're trying something like that in Canada right now?
Well, U.S. corporations have always wanted to buy as much of Canada as they can.
Right.
In terms of those corporations coming in, Walmart came in, and when Walmart came to Canada, a lot of our local businesses closed. When
Mhm.
Home Depot came to Canada, a lot of our hardware stores closed. This corporatocracy has worldwide implications. In terms of separatism, the Canadian Union is based on what are called transfer payments between provinces.
Okay.
And there are have-not provinces, so-called, and there are have provinces. And Alberta has a lot of oil, so they're very proud of themselves for having those assets. But they're supposed to share with the rest of the country. But the greedy bastards in Alberta they always say, oh, we're being treated poorly. Sound familiar? We're not
Mhm.
with respect. Sound familiar?
Yep.
So the talking points are very much like Trump talking points, and we're going to threaten to separate unless you pony up and give Alberta more. And the latest thing is the premier of the province is saying, we won't fund judges in Alberta unless the government gets a bigger say in the selection of federal judges. Sound familiar?
Mhm.
These are all Trump strategies. And so the premier of Alberta is sending people to Washington all the time and trying to have a dialogue with MAGA.
Right.
And so there's money coming into Alberta to support this separatist movement. Now the talking heads will all say, "Oh no, 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 no! We just we just believe that people should have their say, etc." Right?
Mhm.
And but the money's coming in to support the conflict to try to create chaos in our society, like the chaos being created in yours.
Yeah.
Now, there's always been separatism in Alberta, and there's always been separatism in Quebec. Quebec has a good reason because they do have their own language,
Yeah.
and there is a historical precedent for that. Canada was built on the idea of that the victor, being England, would not defeat and get rid of all the French, but instead would accommodate them, and we became a bilingual country, which
Yeah.
is only administratively bilingual. I happen to be bilingual because I studied in Montreal, but the majority of English-speaking Canadians are not bilingual. So that separatism has always been there, but accommodating,
It
accommodate.
looks like actually Nick has joined us, so I'm going to let him in. Finish your
Oh,
thought, and then we'll
that's great.
introduce each other.
So accommodating people of different languages, of different cultures, accommodation and coexistence with people of different backgrounds is a fundamental part of Canadian society. So that's the end of that comment. Hi, Nick.
Hi, John. It's
Yes.
really nice to meet you.
Yes.
Shane has talked a lot about you, and I also subscribe and follow to you, not because you were the wrong John Oliver, but because you were the right one.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
and
I like
because
that.
I'm a composer too, or at least I was. I did classical music composition and theory at Carnegie Mellon University.
Oh, good.
Um, and I wanted to go into film and game design and music composition, but the program I wanted to go into was rather expensive,
Mm.
and never went that way. But I have some pieces that I've recorded and some things that I have gotten to have performed, which is amazing, and it's really an honor to get to meet you and get to talk to you.
Yeah, great. Great to know. Well, I've seen you on various group chats, right, on Substack over the last several months. So you're always asking great questions and getting people to really dig into their knowledge and their conversation. So I've certainly appreciated that aspect, and it's good to learn that you have a musical background. I will say that I find a lot of the more prescient people in our independent media scape. A lot of them have guitars in the background. They're, a lot of musicians are pretty bright people. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, creativity, right? Like I always say, like music or whatever, whether it's music, painting, whatever medium, whether you're an author, the act of creation in and of itself is something that kind of mandates a certain level of critical thinking, right? Because you have to put different pieces together from different places, and
Well,
that's really. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that, one of the expressions from back even sort of before my youth time, because I'm a late boomer, kind of borderline Gen X boomer age, right? So, the expression blow your mind is what creative people do. They blow their own minds by doing the thing, and then
Right.
they share it and hope they're going to blow somebody else's mind, or
Mhm.
maybe less than that if it's not
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's and I'm so excited to finally connect you guys, and have this conversation. And usually I talk a lot, but today I'm going to try and talk less. And I would really, the idea, this core of this discussion is what can music do in times like this when things are really dark and depressing and hard? Where do you guys, as musicians, as composers, who people have really lived in this space, I'd love to hear you guys kind of just talk and give your thoughts on where you see music helping in this time, and bringing people together, and driving communities and individuals towards a better future, one that's sustainable, one that is accepting, one that is forward focused. And Nick, as our guest, I would love for you to kind of kick off the dialogue today.
Sure. Yeah. One, thanks for inviting me. I'm going to be here as long as I can today. I'm also cross streaming with Zev Shalev for the congressional testimony. It's on a break. So I'm not on right now, which is fine. I'm glad
Cool.
they're on lunch. It's been a hell of a morning.
I have no
Listening
idea what's
to,
going on.
oh my,
I have
it's,
no idea what's
I'll
going on.
recap. It's a whole bunch of lies from Pam Bondi, and I
Okay.
think she was actually caught perjuring herself
Cool.
in testimony by Representative Ted Lieu. And some of the congressional members have been doing a fantastic job of questioning. Others on the Democratic side have not, which is really disappointing. But anyway, going back to what you were like really talking about here is the music and the creativity. And I'm one all for creativity. Like Shane, you know that. Is all of my shows are started by a piece of music, one of the pieces or any of the pieces of music that I've written. Like I start
Cool.
all of my podcasts with a 30-second excerpt of something I've written. I encourage people all the time to continue writing and putting out music or creativity or poetry. Like that's one of my big things right now is I'm not actively writing music because that's John, you can probably speak on this much more than I can, because you do it and have done it professionally. It's really time consuming. It's really time intensive to write music. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. There's a huge process that can go into it. Most don't ever see the creative process behind, and how frustrating it can be at times, but also how rewarding it can be when you write like a single bar of music after sitting there for hours and hours and hours, racking your head on like, why can't I figure out how to go to the next part? And then you finally get it and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. I made it.
Yeah.
And that creativity, that like self-challenge for yourself brings out a lot in just like learning how to grow and like learning how to just express yourself properly, because you have to get through it. But it also brings a lot for other people. Like you're saying, it's sort of that needle in the haystack thing, or John, you were saying, is like, we want to be creative. It's us finding something that we find really cool and creative and then just sharing it with everybody else and hoping they find it just as cool and creative, or even cooler and creative, more creative than we thought. And it's rewarding to get those. And right now, more than ever, I think music is hyper important, and creativity, like poetry or just any form of art, visual art displayed, like Bad Bunny. The Super Bowl over the weekend, the halftime performance was a creative display of the Americas. It was
Of
beautiful.
resistance.
Of resistance. That is so needed. And yes, it made rich people money during the process. I acknowledge that there was also harm that happens because rich people profit off of artists.
That will always
Bad
happen.
Bunny was out, yeah, but it wasn't about them. It was about Bad Bunny, and it was about the creativity, and it was about the beauty and the expression and the culture, and that adds such a vitality to people, and brings joy, because joy is a communal emotion, not just a singular personal emotion. And it gave us joy, and I think that's really what we need right now, to so that it doesn't feel inevitable that bad things are going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
same, really quick, John, just to add, it's like, because he's talking about music. The same is true. I love that you said one thing in particular, Nick, where you sit there forever, hours and hours and hours, and you write one line of music, and it's like the biggest accomplishment you've had all day. I feel that way when I paint. Sometimes I'll sit there staring at this tiny man, the size of my thumb, not being able to decide what color I'm going to paint this particular aspect. And then finally, you put that, you find the color on the color wheel that matches, and you put it on there, and it looks fantastic. And I might not be a composer, but I feel like that feeling must really be the same.
You just hit on a really important point, and it's a point that I have to, whenever I'm talking to like young composers or people who are just getting started. Um, we always think, well, these creative acts are all self-expression, and people always talk about self-expression as though that's all there is. But actually, you can't express yourself if you don't have a language, if you don't have technique, if you haven't studied color theory as a painter or as an artist, if you haven't studied music theory as a musician, then your expression is going to be weaker. It's like, if you don't read books, don't write books.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You're not wrong.
Not wrong at all.
Okay.
If you've never listened to music,
wanted
don't write music. If
Yeah,
if you've never listened to poetry, don't write poetry. Like, you
Right.
have to know it a little.
So it's the same thing when you say, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm entitled to tell you that your opinion is based on nothing. It's completely factually incorrect and based on no knowledge whatsoever. So welcome to your opinion, but I have the right to not accept it because it's, full of shit, basically. Yeah. So
Exactly.
anyway, I think the really important thing about that whole notion about creativity in general is that creativity, just like its products, are useful across humanity and across the human experience. That means to say that even if you create a very, very simple thing that won't transform the world, that won't be, Bad Bunny, that it won't transform an entire society, if it transforms you and your friend, and that's all it does, that's still creativity. It's still worth something. Background music is worth something, even if it's banal and not really interesting. It serves like a function to create an atmosphere, but it does nothing else. It's all music is acceptable because it has a role to play in our lives, like all the time, right? So people who say, oh, well, it's just background music, I'll say, well, yeah, and it's not very well created background music. It's like kind of boring, but it serves a function. Of course, you get into the details of how bad background music can be. And sometimes for like me, it's really annoying, but it still has a purpose. So this whole hierarchy notion, um, which is based on the stuff I just talking about, like it's really sophisticated and really well done and it's amazing. So there is a hierarchy of good and bad, but it doesn't mean that the bad is useless. The bad is still useful. And so when people get on their high horse, I just say, well, you obviously don't listen to enough music and you don't understand society. So there are composers, and I know them, who don't give a shit about society. They don't think about it at all. All they think about is, the 12-tone series that they're writing, and they think they're doing something really exciting. And I agree that the process of going through the study of 12-tone music is interesting for your brain, but it's culturally irrelevant in our time. So people who kid themselves to think that they're, continuing some great tradition by pursuing serial music are just deluding themselves. It has no role to play in society, right?
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things that, people who've gone to university think about stuff like that, because we've studied all these different types of music and how they're put together and how they exist in society at the time that they are current. So people who are stuck in their ivory tower and don't really think about much about anything else other than music, those are the people who may continue to do things that they enjoy and so on. But it's, in my view, just as relevant for an academic at a university to do that for themselves and their little coterie of people who talk about that stuff. It's just as important as the guy playing, the bar on the weekend.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring those two down to a similar level, but in terms of social relevance, it's about that level. And
Yeah.
sorry for the ivory tower people. I come from the ivory tower originally, but that's my take on music's strange usefulness in society.
What do you think,
I
Nick?
love that you brought in serialism in there. So when I was at Carnegie Mellon, I learned about serialism and the use of 12-tone matrices and
Can you
building out.
it's just for the people who don't know, really quick,
Yeah.
give me and everyone else a little breakdown on what serialism is, and
I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, John.
Do it.
Everybody knows what a piano looks like?
Yes.
There are 12 notes on the piano. Imagine if you had a diktat that they must all be used statistically equivalently. They must all be used all the time. That's it.
The
That's
balance of different notes
just
used.
the notes. They have to all be used all the time.
Yeah.
Be egalitarian with the notes and use them all the time.
Perfect.
And you have to do it in a very structured pattern. And it's a very structured, based on like a mathematical matrices. Like you build like a little square box of numbers that say 0 through 11 or 1 through 12, depending on if you do a 0 or 1 system. Either one, it doesn't matter. They're the same equivalents, but like you do this pattern and then you structure your music based on the exact pattern. You have to use these notes at this time, these notes, these notes, these notes, and then you can repeat but change the pattern so that, say, it's not the same order of notes over and over again, but it requires all of the notes to be used, like you said, egalitarian.
And importantly, that you can't repeat a note.
Yes, until the others have played.
A note cannot.
Forgive me if I sound ignorant, but isn't that stifling? Like, what if to tell your story, you need to play the same note twice? I mean, obviously I'm not a composer, like maybe, but like.
Okay, well, the answer is very simple. The system goes contrary to all knowledge about the brain. Study psychology, study perception, study anything to do with how humans perceive anything, and you will realize that serialism is a completely bogus thing that was designed by people who believed that they were extending romanticism to its final musical logic. That's what
Do you agree with that take, Nick?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I do agree with that because I've also done music that is serialism. I'll share with you sometime, Shane, for you
share
to be
with
able
both of us, please.
Yeah, I'll share with both of you some of the music that I have written. I have a piano solo piece that's, I think, like 5 or 6 short collections of, it was like, I did these minimalist pieces that were, I think, 100 notes or less. And I constrained myself, and it is a very constraining process. It's very rigid, and it's very, like, you can hear the stifle of the creativity in it because you have to follow certain patterns. And then I'll share to you, like, the piece that I start Pal and Talk with, that piano solo piece.
Mhm.
That is a 12.5 minute long, like, piano solo
Yeah.
that I based on a repeating pattern, but I didn't use serialism to do it. I used, like, the concepts of changing letters and numbers into notes on a piano scale so that I could convert the alphabet into piano notes, into actual, like, scale notes. And I took license plates and I turned those. I was like, for a summer, I literally just, like, jotted down license plate numbers as I went, and then converted them into musical pattern sequences of a triplet and two eighth notes, and then built off of that sequencing a series of fluctuating patterns. And but I didn't constrain myself to the serialism's strict rigidity. So think of serialism as white nationalism for music.
Huh.
Is it's ultra structured, it's super rigid.
Yeah.
It I mean, it was a German invention, and it was used very, very prolifically during World War II and around those times with Nazis music. Like, it is not, it has a pretty bad founding in it too at points. At least in my understanding, John, you can correct me too if I'm wrong on some of those points there. It's been a while since I've studied musicology and music history around this, but um, the point on it is it's like, it's such a structured system. It reminds me of the musical equivalent of a hierarchical, like, Christian nationalist system of, you have to follow these exact rules all the time or you're wrong.
Right.
No room for, no room for wiggle, no room for, you can't have the same, you can't have C in an octave with each other playing at the same time. You have to be strict. You have to do one thing at a time. You have to do it this way or it's wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
and that's what it is. It's not romantic. It's just strict and structured.
yeah, I mean, but structurally it did come out of late romanticism. Total chromaticism is what it was called, right?
Yeah.
And and so it was a way to it was an interesting thought experiment, but the reason it became institutionalized is because it is very easy to teach. It's a
Mm.
system, so it's easy to teach, like you can teach counterpoint, like you can teach harmony. And so that's why it became a cornerstone of academic work. But the problem is that they threw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Um, Music previous to that time had emotional content that would move you, that would create an emotional response inside you, and that's because it used repetition, it used sequences, it used things that our brain easily follows and enjoys following, whereas serialism doesn't do that.
Question
So
for you both. When you're done, John, I have a question for you both.
yeah, that's it basically.
Okay. So what you're this kind of serialism, I mean, how does that translate into this surge of basically AI slop music? Like, would this be something that an AI algorithm could very easily train on to make music? Is that a
Oh,
threat
absolutely.
to the space? And what do you guys think about that?
Well, it won't do it. It's not going. It won't make any money, so it's useless. It won't be done. It won't be done. I mean,
Yeah.
but what they will do is they will take harmony textbooks and sequences of chords and so on that are in popular music. Humans have already been imitating each other in popular music for decades. You can, if you have a good ear, you can trace the licks and
Mm,
all of
yeah.
the things that have been imitated and continue to be imitated to this day. So humans have been doing this kind of thing because it's just shared culture. It's already a shared culture anyway. But the problem is that we do this because it gives us joy to do it and then to be part of it as the audience as well. I'm an audience and I'm a creator. Everybody who creates is also an audience, and it's all
Yeah.
a social engagement. So there's absolutely no reason why any other being non-sentient being should have anything to do with it. It's just it's theft for the profit of people who don't have culture. Basically, I don't believe that any of these AI people actually have any culture. I don't know how they exist in the world. They may have a sort of echo of culture because they are still notionally human beings. But the people who run Palantir, I just question their actual, you know, whether they're how human they actually are for that reason. You know,
I
and
always
so
wonder.
yeah, I was
I
just
always,
going to say, go ahead, actually, Shane.
I always wonder at what point you stop calling a person and a monster. At what point does a person become a monster? Like, when do we say, okay, you've lost your personhood because you are a sycophant murderer, has zero regard for human life, and actually don't even really care about the future of the entire species in 10 years? So at what point at what point do we stop attributing personhood to these people that really are, you know, and is, I don't really know if that, like, if that is wrong. If someone demonstrates that they don't treat people like people, at what point do you, like, kind of similar to like AI music, like, do they get to, because it makes a sound that you can audibly hear, does that mean the AI is a musician?
No, of
Like,
course.
the
Well,
question
they'll claim
remains.
it. They'll claim that
Right.
music. They'll claim that composers can be replaced by AI, and that we don't have to worry about wasting our time um, with this sort of creativity. It's not useful to them because it does, like John, you just said it. They don't have the same social like connection and like our creative connection that the rest of us do with each other, because music, like you said, music has been done since the beginning of human history, like recorded human history at least. And the the purposeful removal of the personality from music is anti-music,
Yeah,
basically. Like,
exactly.
and so
Back to the serialism is the same thing. Serialism takes the person out of the process.
mhm,
There's a
yeah.
great question here, guys, that says, do you become part of the music? Does that make sense from our audience?
The answer is very simple. As you are making it, you are it. And then once it's done and it's for everyone else now. And it passes through you. This is what, when J.S. Bach was talking about God speaks through him, through the music, that's exactly
Mm.
what he meant. That's the creative process is a really fascinating thing to do. And once you are trained to do this thing in any art form, it's the process of creating it that does something in your brain that really it's exciting. It's like a drug, right? And then once it's passed through you and you have externalized it into a score that gets played by somebody, or you've improvised in an electronic score that's a half an hour long, once you've done it, then it's not yours anymore. It's for other people to enjoy if they want to.
Yeah, I for me, when I did sit down to write music, which I did at least sit down and play on the piano this weekend for a little while, which
Heck
was
yeah,
nice.
dude.
Um,
Yeah.
was I let myself get lost in my own music and the creative process for it. I When I was writing, I never let myself not explore in the music. So if I got off track, that's okay. Like, getting off track in music is okay, because that point of like creativity may come back later and be useful somewhere else. Like, no piece of music that I've written has been unuseful to me.
Mhm.
Is some of it bad? Yeah. I would say some of the music that I've written for myself was bad, that I never shared. That said, it was not unuseful.
Mhm.
It taught me different combinations of chords. It taught me different combinations of like counterpoint and rhythmic patterns, and what did and didn't work, and what, if you intentionally did it, how it made a real difference in the music, versus how if you accidentally do it, and it surprises you. Um,
And
and
be good.
yeah, Yeah. And sometimes you find like the weirdest things that you didn't think were going to be good that you end up latching onto, or that people latch onto and are like, oh, I loved that really odd yet moving counterpoint where you were doing off beats here and then you layered in a slightly other offbeat, and they like can't explain it to you exactly what you did, but
Right.
you know it. And you're like, oh yeah, like yeah, that was this part that I totally forgot I was doing in here, and then it just ended up a repeating pattern throughout.
I've got
And
a
it's
good
fun
Right.
to see that creativity grow.
Yeah.
I've got a question. Go ahead, finish, John, and then I've got a new little line of discussion for you guys. I'm sitting over here scheming.
Yet. So one of the ancient Taoist sayings is, learn and study and explore and learn as much as you can and fill your head with knowledge and then forget it. And the idea is that you're training your intuition as you do the process you just talked about, where you're just doing it and you're fooling around and you're going off track, and you do things that you throw in the garbage, and then two months later you pull it out of the garbage and you go, oh, actually that's quite good. All of that is part of training what becomes your intuition,
Mm.
and your intuition is what continues to lead you. So it's this constant dialogue between studying and figuring out, well, how does that function? I've heard that in that piece of music and I think I know how that works. And so thinking in a conscious way, and then that absorbs into your technique of how you do things, and
Mhm.
eventually you can work almost entirely from intuition once you've built up that intuition through your knowledge base. Shane.
Yeah. Well, one, I love that Taoism. I think that's really like that Taoist saying, like, learn as much as you can and forget it. And it's like, it's true to an extent because, like, I learn so much every day when I write my newsletter. And then I turn around and I forget most of it. Not that I didn't internalize it, but like the parts that are important stick, but you can't hold everything in your brain at the same time. It's the remarkable thing about your brain is there's a lot of things we don't get about our brain, about how we store information. And I think that's really interesting. I just want to add that comment. Now, I'm going to see if I can sparkle maybe a little bit of a disagreement here. I would like to hear what each of you think. It can be maybe a couple, but who do you think was some of the most, let's say the two most influential composers of, and we can say the contemporary period, but anything basically that's, studied in your experience. And Nick, I'd love for you to go first. Who do you think two of the most influential composers have been in the history of music?
That's a loaded question, dude. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That said, one of the most influential composers for me was Claude Debussy, um, because of the impressionism that he did and the way that he crafted music through colors and sound and how they interplayed with each other. He had synesthesia, so he could hear colors when he was it's not a fun disease to have. That said, a lot of composers statistically, the highest average of people with synesthesia in our population are composers for a reason, because they end up figuring out how to write music that sounds good to them so it doesn't hurt their ears, or it doesn't hurt them. And so he had his creative process to me was really amazing in the way that he could create sound that sounded like nature without having to be as like impressionistic as, or like overly impressionistic for some of the like the bird song pieces and like things like that, but he captured the beauty of nature in music through his chordal progressions. La Mer is one of the best pieces I think ever. Prelude Afternoon with a Faun is an amazing flute solo that like begins with a flute solo that just lilting, and it moves between octaves, and it sounds like a deer walking through a field, and you can feel the passion and the impressionism. And I know he would have hated that word because I studied under one of his contemporaries' students, Nadia Boulanger's student. I studied under his student for 2 summers, or her student, during a European summer program that I did.
Which one?
The European American Music Alliance program with, oh crap, what was his name? Let me find his name.
Taoism. It's the Taoism. You filled your brain and then you forgot it all.
Yeah, I filled my brain. I still have him on, like, I'll have to find his name.
Right. Just don't worry.
you.
Was curious.
But like I got to play on a piano of Claude Debussy's while I was in Paris for 2 summers composing music.
So cool, bro.
I got to study with folks who were in, like, so, like, to me, Claude Debussy is is one of the most important. I don't know who the second would be, in my opinion. Like,
that's okay. If you only have one answer, that's okay.
Yeah, I only got one. I think
That's
Debussy to me at least stands out the most.
Sure.
Well, this is where Nick and I are going to be agreeing on the basis, because the basis for music making for me and most of the people that I engage with on a professional level, that the music comes from the sound of the notes themselves. Not the notes themselves, but the sound of the notes themselves, because every single so-called note is a complex of sound, which is called the spectra of the music. And to take it one step further and to stay in the same country, a composer that's not going to be a household name like Debussy is a composer named Gérard Griset, who was basically following in the footsteps of Debussy, but taking it supercharged to another level, where he spoke of organizing music along spectral transformation lines, which means that you take the resonance of music itself and you try to organize a musical language around the evolution of spectra, which means the evolution of more than just the chords, but all of the overtones of the chords. And you pay attention to the actual sound of every single note. So, for example, when you play a perfect fifth on the piano, the higher note produces what ends up being a major seventh chord. And so you can't actually ignore that. If you're going to play a perfect fifth and listen carefully, you're going to hear that major seventh. And so these are the kinds of things that guided his thinking. I'm making it very simple. So Griset was a big influence on me. Also, he totally debunked Messiaen, which I quite enjoyed. I love Messiaen. He did some great things, but he debunked a number of musical niceties that Messiaen put forward as kind of composer tricks that did not conform to perception. And I'm all about perception. What do we hear and how do we hear music in time, over time? And that's why repetition is important, not too much of it unless you're a minimalist, and all sorts of other issues. The other composer who totally blew my mind when I was quite young was Ligeti, because
that's a good
How do
one.
you spell his name? Ligeti?
Ligeti.
Ligity?
No, Ligeti. Ligeti.
Okay, Hungarian composer. He's from Hungary.
Yeah. So Bartók is another favorite influence of mine for various reasons. But Ligeti really took the whole musical establishment of his time and turned it upside down. He took the serial movement and pushed it, as far as he could as a young composer, but then completely transformed everything and went into what was called micropolyphony, which he created these huge clouds of sound that were like texture, like watching clouds go by. But he did it all with techniques that came out of J.S. Bach. So it's quite an amazing trick, an amazing feat that he managed to achieve. And then he took on the minimalists, and he wrote minimal music that was way better than any minimalist had ever written.
Right.
So he's another really important composer of the 20th century. So those are my.
Okay, so John, I pulled up the name of the teacher that I studied under, Philip Lasser.
Lasser?
Yeah. I'll send you here in the chat. Um,
Is he French or American?
American.
Oh, well, there you go.
And he studied under her. Uh, but it also reminded me the other person, thinking about this on like a lesser known composer, is someone that I studied under, who is really someone who influenced me a lot, and I think has a incredible, unique influence in the world of music. Is Reza Vali. He's an Iranian composer, Iranian American composer. Um, who studied originally at the University of Tehran, and has been a composition professor at Carnegie Mellon for a long time. I hope he's still there. He was my private teacher for 3 of my 4 years there, and was incredible.
Wow.
What he does is he takes traditional Persian music. He sees himself as Persian, and that's how he describes himself: Persian over Iranian. Is
They all do.
he? Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he takes traditional Persian techniques, Persian scales, because Eastern and Middle Eastern music and Eastern music in general uses very different tonal patterns than we do. They use microtones, which John talking about the overtone sequences and the ability to create like secondary notes while other notes are playing is one of my favorite things, like Mongolian throat singing. One of my favorite cool techniques to sing, because you're literally creating overtones yourself and singing multiple notes at once. We used to try and teach ourselves it in college, so I know a little bit of like the basics of how to do it. It's so fun to try and get. Do you know how to do it too?
I've done. I actually wrote a piece where
That's amazing.
I actually did my version of it. I was able to pull out the harmonics by singing, at the time. But it wasn't the throat singing thing. It was just, the standard vowel control with your mouth, right? Which,
Yeah.
could I do it right now?
Question for you guys.
What?
I've only ever played 2 instruments. So I learned piano when I was a kid, and then I stopped doing that. And then I do actually play myself a terrible didgeridoo.
There you go. Same concept.
What applications like for that? Like because it's such a unique instrument, right? It's like a very unique type of thing. Like where can you like use that in music? Like where do you see like creative application for that kind of instrument?
Didgeridoo playing?
For didgeridoos, yes.
Didgeridoos are amazing.
Yeah. Well, you can put it anywhere, but it sounds really good. If it's in a rock band, amplified, that would sound pretty cool. Because
yeah, that'd be neat.
When you exaggerate the breath and you go, when you push the sound through, it creates this overtone rush. That's a really cool. It's kind of like distortion on a guitar, except it's
and the bass that comes out of a didgeridoo, like so thinking about didgeridoos, we amplified one in high school one time. We put it up against a microphone into our, because my music teacher in high school had a bunch of different instruments, and she had a didgeridoo, and so we amplified it in our auditorium, and it shook the whole school. And my school wasn't tiny. Like, it shook the whole building. It was a 1-story building laid out flat, and we shook the damn thing because it has so much low reverberation that you don't actually pick up normally, unless you amplify it. And then, rock would be an incredible use of the didgeridoo. Just like you look at bands, I think it's Apocalyptica, is all cellos. It's a Swedish all cello rock band. You would never know that it was cellos at first. When you hear it on recordings, you're like, damn, these guys are good guitar players. Damn, they're good at the bass. Nope, they're playing cellos. They're playing mic'd up, amped up cellos, and they're awesome. Like instruments can be used in so many different ways. Like, that's one of the reasons I like why, John, if you ever get the chance to, I'd look up Reza Vali's work. Is because he does an intentional blending of Western and Eastern musical traditions and fluidly transitions them to each other and uses Eastern or Western instruments in a more Eastern way. And he adds in like that depth of like cross regional like interplay, and
Right.
it's so beautiful.
Yes.
And that's the type of thing like didgeridoos, those types of things, like traditional Aboriginal instruments, or even like wood flutes, like the Navajo wood flute. I have a Navajo wood flute that plays microtones really well.
Yeah.
Like those things can get interwoven so well into what we would consider classical Western music,
You know,
because they're all based on the same things, and we just let ourselves be stricter in our note patterns than Eastern cultures did.
so I think it's important to mention in this context that the musical system that has been in Western music since the invention of this 12 note system, equal tempered system, where the notes are equally spaced, that system is inherently dissonant. It is not inherently good. It is not inherently good for your ears. It is dissonant. The only reason they made it is so that you could modulate and play any chord after any chord you wanted to, which was a very European concept that was part of the late Romantic and Chromatic period that we referred to earlier, okay? But in the rest of the world, music sounds according to nature. And so when people say, oh, that's microtonal music, it must be dissonant and hard to listen to, I always have to point out, well, it's quite the contrary, that these microtones are natural and that what you've been listening to is not natural. So
Yeah.
the music of Persia, the music of Mongolia, the music of China, all of these musics that are non-Western musics are all more natural than our Western music system. And so, for example, so how did Western music try to fix this problem? Well, it tried to make microtonal music equally tempered, but with more notes, until they could get close enough to have enough notes so that they could kind of imitate nature, but still be organized in a Western way. And so when you divide that octave up into more than 12 spots, and you say triple it so that it's 31 to 36 notes, 31 being a kind of ideal tuning, then you can kind of get closer to nature. But you go to anywhere across the Middle East and into Asia, and it just happens naturally. They don't need to divide octaves and all of this kind of nonsense. They just listen. And Persian music is a perfect example. They have 17 tones, and a good number of those microtones are much closer to nature than our 12 note system. So the microtones you're talking about, people have to have that context that a microtone isn't the weird part. The weird part is the system that we are in. Our system is weird. It's not natural.
That's so in tune with all Western ideas. It's weird. Western ideology is about imposing a perceived structure on the world, and Eastern ideology is about working with the world and building your structures that work in parallel and tandem, as
Right.
well as that's always really been the case with the global South as well. You have a tendency for cultures to work with nature systems as opposed to impose order on nature. When you impose order on nature, ultimately you degrade and damage what you're trying to control, which kind of loses its beauty. I always think that it's like what you guys are trying to do as composers is make something that feels natural, and it's like it seems like the Western music at this point is kind of trying to break out, right, of this system that was created to control it, right, this serialism. And so now you're seeing composers and people who make music realize that creativity cannot exist within a rigid system. You cannot be creative inside of a system that does not allow you to play the same note twice in a row.
Right. So
You limit yourself entirely. I just have one more thing, John, and then I'm going to give it to you. I wanted to share that music was the very first form of human entertainment. We were whistling and have been whistling as long as humans have been around. There's studies that show that when you whistle, it releases the dopamine and the same things that you get. So in the tune of natural music, and that's like humans were whistling. It's a natural evolution for humans because we love music so much. We evolved to whistle to entertain ourselves, and I've always thought that's remarkable.
I mean, not just whistling, but I mean, singing is a natural.
Yes, true.
Okay, so to say that whistling and to isolate whistling as somehow the thing is really not it. Singing is natural. Singing is natural. I remember I ran into an indigenous guy at the Banff Center. I was standing in line getting ready to have a beer, and all of a sudden there were all these indigenous people in the space. And the guy in front of me turned around and he said, "Oh, you're a musician here, right? Lots of musicians here, right? So what's your song?" I looked at the guy and said, "What's my song?" "Well, you sing, don't you? You're a human being. You sing." If you don't sing, in our culture, if you don't sing, somebody thinks that people will think you're sick if you don't sing. Now, talk about the core of the human being singing came before language. Singing is the ultimate thing that we lose when we say that music is a profession and I am just a person who's not musical. People say that all the time. I'm not musical. I say, what do you mean you're not musical? Oh, I can't sing. Have you tried to sing? Yeah, but I don't have a good voice. You know, people are shut down all the time from being creative because the consumer society wants you to make money and spend money and forget that you're a creative being.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And I've learned in my life, because I did it and I bought into that narrative of like, you're only good singer if you've like been trained in singing, is shut the fuck up about it. Is if somebody's tone deaf and or doesn't have like what would be quote musical ability, shut up about it. Like, let them enjoy their creativity, let them sing, don't dissuade them in any way, because their singing and their creative outpouring is more important than your idea of what a good voice is. Like, imagine if somebody had kept telling Bob Dylan to shut up and not sing. The man's voice sucked. The man but he was a poet, and he knew he knew how to put music together, and he knew how to create and compose and put beauty out there. And if someone had told him to shut up and don't sing because you got a raspy, ugly voice, we would have been so much worse off because of it.
Exactly.
And I've learned that lesson. Don't do that to people, because it's really hurting. It really hurts, and it's not worth the hurt to sate your own ego about what you think music should be. Also, I think whistling's really cool.
Go ahead.
Finish.
Really cool because I taught myself in college how to to multi-tone the whistle. So I hum and whistle at the same time. Yeah. I've always found that really fun. Like you put a hum behind it. You can also start like vocalizing into it. So you could I'll hum whistle and start talking to my dogs at the same time and try and like actually vocalize through it, because it creates cool sounds. It's fun to train yourself to do those things because it's natural. It's natural to make sounds and create and just express yourselves. We've limited ourselves. So go have fun and do creative sounds. They may be annoying, and that's okay. Right. Even if you think they're annoying, like, try not to dissuade your kids from whistling. Try not to dissuade your kids or family members or friends or anybody from singing or making vocalizations that are musical, because those are so important.
Yeah, totally. So closing thoughts, guys. I have a little bit of a tight deadline today. I got to take the dog to the vet. So I would love for both of you, Nick, is there anything you would like to add kind of what do you want people to take away from this dialogue today? What do you want people to take away from this discussion?
I want people to take away that music is for all of us, and that we should all be celebrating this music together. And we should be doing as much as we can to promote music together, to encourage people to create together. Not just music, but creativity in general is to create together, because we bring joy to ourselves, we bring joy to others, and that is what we need right now. Is we need a shift purposely towards joy. And so go create with each other and encourage others to go create.
Yes, absolutely.
And John, it's been so nice to meet you so far.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah. I look forward to our next. I hope we'll do this again, Shane.
Absolutely. Nick is my favorite person on Substack. Nick is my best friend on Substack. So me and
Shane,
Nick
you're one of my best friends.
Me and
You a
Nick
best
talk
friend.
all
You
the
were
time.
real bad.
Yes. So guys, go subscribe to Nick. He's got a QR code on the screen, so you guys can scan that. And then I'm gonna put up yours, John, and your closing thought for everyone.
I just wanted to say, from my perspective, I've taken this idea of sharing to a professional level. I've been collaborating with Chinese and Persian and Indian musicians here in Vancouver, which is an incredibly multicultural society. I don't have to go anywhere else in the world to experience the world's culture because it has come to our town. And so if you go to my website or wherever, I've written a lot of chamber music and orchestral music and all that stuff. Mainly in the past, I'm doing electronic music a lot now.
It's so cool, guys. Go listen to it. His music is so rad.
So one thing I just wanted to point out in the context of the Persian connection in our discussion today is a piece called Gypsy Chronicles that I wrote for the Vancouver Intercultural Orchestra. And it's available on a CD. If you go to my website, johnolivermusic.com, and recording section, you'll find the recording. And what I've done is I've taken that microtone, specifically the 11th harmonic, if you want to be a geek, or a quarter tone out, and I forced the string musicians to play that interval so that we could hear it and really get your ear into the Persian sound. And then I created a whole suite of 4 pieces around this Persian concept. But it's like more than Persian musicians. It's a mixture of these different cultures. And that's what, when you do something like that and you present that to the world in a professional context, you're making a statement about international cooperation. And that extends it from your family and encouraging your family to sing and be musical to the whole musical family of the world doing it as much as they can together.
That's fantastic. Thank you, John. And for all of you here as well, I'm the only non-composer here on the screen. So I hope you were all joining and listening as intently as I was to this very interesting discussion. So both of you, the dialogue, it's so good to be back with John. And moving forward, as I'm moving things around, the first show we're going to bring back to weekly is the dialogue. So I really love this discussion. I really love my time with John, and I'm so happy that you guys were able to come together. So what I do normally, for those of you who maybe haven't met me yet, I do a daily news show. So if you're interested in geopolitics and all of the things going on in this world, consider giving me a subscribe as well. And subscribe to these guys as well. You can click the little thing in the top of your screen here. It's got all 3 of our little bubbles up there. Click that, subscribe, and you're going to see, you're going to see all of us doing what we do exceptionally in our own ways, but we will definitely come together again. And thank you all for being part of a discussion that is really important, because music and culture and creativity are so integral right now, because solving problems is about being creative. And that means that someone creative enough to write magnificent music is probably also creative enough to solve other complex problems. And you want to leverage those relationships between exceptional artists to come up with artistic solutions, creative artistic solutions. And that's really important in the world right now. So thank you all so much for joining us for this dialogue this week. And we will see you next time, because of course the dialogue must continue. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
and we'll see you later.
Bye.